Last week, I found myself stuck in the dreaded middle seat on my flight back to Chicago. You know that spot where you're sandwiched between two strangers? Perfect for either an awkward silence or a surprisingly deep conversation. Lucky for me, it was the latter. My seatmate, a VP of sales at a Fortune 500 company, was wrestling with something that's keeping a lot of leaders up at night. Brad, she said, my team isn't lazy. They're not ungrateful. But something's broken. They show up, they do the work, but that fire, that hunger that used to drive them to chase the big deals is just gone. We dove into what's really happening at work these days, and before I knew it, time flew by, and the plane landed 30 minutes early. Her story became the catalyst for today's exploration. So, let's dive in. A quick disclaimer before we dive in. The Norton Design Lab videos reflect my personal views, not those of my current or former employers. The case study I'll share is a composite of multiple real-world examples designed to give you powerful learning tools. Individual results will, of course, vary. Let's get into it. Welcome to Norton Design Lab. I'm Brad Norton. For over 20 years, I've been obsessed with designing incentive strategies and management systems that are backed by evidence, not just tradition. Today, I'm focusing specifically on the financial component of motivation, how compensation design can either fuel extraordinary performance or quietly drain it away. In a future video, we'll dive deep into the meaning and purpose side of the equation because both matter tremendously. But here's why I believe quiet quitting is a myth when it comes to compensation. It isn't a new pathology infecting your workforce. It's a rational response to a broken financial incentive system. Think about it. We ask our people to invest their most valuable, non-renewable assets, their time, their creativity, their emotional energy to our companies. This week, I'm laser focused on the financial motivation component. How compensation design can either unlock extraordinary performance or systematically drain it away. The meaning and purpose side of the equation is equally critical, and I'll tackle that in depth in a future video. We're going to treat your company's incentive structure not as a policy document, but as an operating system. And when that OS is slow, unintuitive, and full of friction, you don't blame the user for not being engaged. You redesign the system. This matters because a boring transactional compensation plan doesn't fail to motivate. It actively drains your team's most precious resource, their discretionary effort. It's the difference between a team that shows up and a team that wins. So, today we'll look at an anonymized case study of a company that faced this exact engagement drain. We will explore the foundational principles outlined in some brilliant books that get into the heart of human drive. And we'll give you actionable steps that will challenge your assumptions about what truly gets your best people fired up to bring their A game to work every single day. For the better part of a century, the sales motivation playbook has had exactly one play, the carrot and stick. More sales, more carrots. Miss your number, you get the stick. It's simple, it's transactional, and for a certain type of work, it was brutally effective. But here's the wonderful paradox we're facing today. The work has changed, but the playbook hasn't. You've hired elite professionals for creativity, strategic thinking, and complex problem solving. You have a team of intellectual athletes. So, why are we still trying to motivate them with a system designed for assembling widgets and production line work? The challenge is that we're managing people based on a set of assumptions about human drive that are, to put it mildly, obsolete. It's a reality that Daniel H. Pink laid out with stunning clarity in his foundational book, Drive, The Surprising Truth About What Motivates Us. To really dive deep on this, I recommend ordering a copy of Drive. I've dropped a link in the description for you. Just as a heads up, as an Amazon associate, I may earn from qualifying purchases if you use the link, which helps support the channel at no extra cost to you. Pink argues that for the creative, knowledge-based work that defines the 21st century, the old carrot and stick model isn't just ineffective, it can be actively harmful. It narrows focus, kills creativity, and can lead to the exact kind of disengaged, just doing the minimum behavior that gets misdiagnosed as quiet quitting. But here's what's fascinating. This isn't about abandoning financial incentives. It's about designing them intelligently. The most effective compensation systems don't just reward performance, they create an environment where people can pursue both financial success and meaningful achievement simultaneously. This isn't just an HR problem. It's a fundamental design flaw. You've built a high-performance engine, but you're trying to run it on the wrong kind of fuel. You keep adding more additives, spiffs, bonuses, contests, but the engine just sputters because you're not solving the real job to be done, creating a compensation system that makes your team feel both financially rewarded and genuinely motivated. You're just offering more of a fuel that can no longer process effectively. So, this all sounds like a great academic theory, but how does a company, a real-world titan with smart people and good intentions, find itself staring into the motivational abyss where financial rewards actually backfire? I'll take us through a composite of several companies facing this exact challenge. Let's call our case study Innovate Corp. Innovate Corp is a darling of the enterprise software world. They're a global player, the kind of company whose products are so deeply embedded in their clients' operations that they're practically part of the corporate DNA. They have a sales force of over 1,000 professionals, a team that for years operated with the relentless precision of a Swiss watch. They didn't just meet targets, they redefined them. And here's the crucial part. They weren't cheap with compensation. These weren't underpaid, undervalued employees. The total comp packages were competitive, even generous by industry standards. On paper, the financial rewards should have been motivating. But then a subtle corrosive problem began to set in. On the surface, the numbers looked fine. The company was still growing, but the leadership team, the ones who study the telemetry of the business, saw the warning lights blinking. The specific challenge was a creeping lethargy in their highest value activities. Growth in their core high-margin products had flatlined. Their veteran reps, the ones who are supposed to be hunting the big, complex deals that required creativity and strategic thinking, were coasting, executing simple renewals, but demonstrating zero appetite for new frontiers. The spark was gone. It felt like the entire sales organization had collectively decided to shift their portfolio from high-growth tech stocks to conservative utility bonds. And here were the stakes. And they were terrifying. This wasn't just about a missed quarter. This was about the slow, silent erosion of their competitive edge. It was the cultural equivalent of accumulating technical debt. Each month of this quiet disengagement was another line of buggy code added to their system, making an eventual catastrophic crash more and more likely. They were at risk of losing not just market share, but the very soul of the company that made them great. The mystery? Their compensation was generous. Their people were talented. So why had their financial incentive system become a creativity killer instead of a performance amplifier? All right, so if the carrot and stick is a relic and an outdated piece of hardware, what's the replacement? What's the modern operating system for human motivation that actually works with financial incentives instead of against them? Fortunately, the research here is incredibly clear, and it was synthesized beautifully by Daniel H. Pink in his book, Drive. This is the intellectual toolkit we need to dismantle the myth of quiet quitting and design compensation systems that actually amplify performance. Pink's research reveals that for 21st century work, motivation runs on 3 core drives. Think of it as an ultimate power-up trio for knowledge workers: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. First, autonomy, the desire to direct our own lives. In sales, this is the urge to be the CEO of your own territory, not a micromanager's pawn. But here's the key insight. Autonomy doesn't mean abandoning financial incentives. It means designing them so people have choices in how they pursue their financial goals. Second, mastery. The yearning to get better and better at something that matters. A great sales professional doesn't just want to hit a number. They want to master the art of the deal, the science of persuasion. The most powerful compensation systems reward not just results, but the development of expertise that leads to sustainable results. And third, purpose. The need to do what we do in the service of something larger than ourselves. It's the belief that your product actually helps people, that your work has meaning beyond the commission check. Smart compensation design connects financial rewards to outcomes that matter to customers and society. Now here's where we add a fascinating layer from behavioral economics, found in the book The Power of Bad by John Tierney and Roy Baumeister. They demonstrate that for human beings, losses loom larger than gains. Losing $100 feels way worse than winning $100 feels good. So, how does this apply to compensation design? Most comp plans are all about potential gain. Hit your numbers, get your bonus. But a brilliantly designed system leverages loss aversion in positive ways. It's not just about the bonus you might get. It's about the profound, gut-wrenching feeling of losing your spot in the President's Club once you've earned it, or losing your status as the top performer. It reframes the incentive from a simple carrot to a cherished identity you will fight like hell not to lose. Finally, we have to design for focus. This is where Nir Eyal's work in Indistractable is so critical. He argues that we perform best when we can achieve deep, focused work. But what are most compensation plans? They're a chaotic mess of conflicting priorities, quarterly kickers and spiffs that change every other week. It's the corporate equivalent of getting a push notification every 3 minutes. It's a system that is designed for distraction. Now, to really dive deep on these concepts, I recommend ordering copies of Drive, The Power of Bad, and Indistractable. I've dropped links in the description for you. A great compensation plan is simple. It makes the goal so clear and compelling that the salesperson can become an indistractable execution machine, focusing all their energy on what actually moves the needle while feeling financially rewarded for that focus. So, we have our framework. A beautiful, elegant theory about how to make financial incentives actually motivate instead of demotivate. But as any engineer will tell you, the gap between a blueprint and a functional machine is where all the real work and all the glorious chaos happens. So, how did Innovate Corp actually apply these principles to redesign their compensation system? It wasn't a memo. It wasn't a single grand big bang launch. It was a careful, deliberate process of financial incentive redesign. Step 1. The compensation diagnostic. First, they stopped assuming they knew what motivated their people financially. Instead, they launched what we can call a compensation diagnostic. This wasn't a fluffy satisfaction survey. It was a deep diagnostic tool designed to understand the relationship between their current financial incentives and actual performance behaviors. They used anonymous surveys and, crucially, externally facilitated focus group. As anyone who's ever been in a corporate meeting knows, the real feedback about money only comes out when people are 100% certain their manager isn't listening. The questions were designed to uncover insights based on our framework. For autonomy, they asked, if you could redesign your compensation plan to give you more control over your earnings potential, what would that look like? For mastery, what skills or capabilities do you wish our compensation system rewarded more heavily? What expertise are we not incentivizing that would make you more effective? For purpose, when you close a deal, what feels more rewarding, the commission check or the impact on the customer? How would our comp plan better connect these two? And here's the crucial loss aversion question. What part of your current compensation would you fight hardest not to lose, and why? The results were illuminating. They discovered their reps felt like their earnings potential was capped by arbitrary rules, that the only mastery being rewarded was hitting volume metrics regardless of deal quality, and that they had lost the connection between their financial success and their customer success. Most tellingly, people were most afraid of losing their base salary, not excited about upside potential. Step 2, prototyping a financial motivation menu. Armed with this data, they didn't just build one new compensation plan. That would be like replacing one gray, one-size-fits-all tracksuit with another. Instead, they prototyped a flexible, modular system. Less like a uniform and more like a set of high-performance gear you could customize for your own mission. They created a beta group of trusted mid-tier and top-tier reps to test these ideas. To fuel autonomy, they offered a choice. Reps could opt for a higher base salary with more conservative commission rate, or go for a lower base with massive upside potential. They also created a territory investment fund, a discretionary budget that high performers could use for client engagements, with the understanding that smart investments would be reflected in their performance metrics. To build mastery, they created a visible leveling system tied to compensation. Hitting certain performance and skill milestones unlocked not just cash rewards, but access to higher commission tiers, exclusive training programs, and the budget to attend industry conferences. They were no longer just earning money. They were earning the right to earn more money through demonstrated expertise. And to drive purpose, they tied a significant portion of the annual bonus to customer success metrics and team goals. This sent a clear signal baked into the financial model that we win financially when our clients win and when we win together. The loss aversion element was brilliant. Once you achieved a performance tier, you kept that higher commission rate for a full year, even if you had a down quarter. Losing that tier required sustained underperformance. This made the financial incentive feel less like a carrot being dangled and more like a valuable asset to protect. Step 3, the rollout. Overcoming the show me the money skepticism. Now, you might think the finance department embraced the concept of giving salespeople more autonomy over their compensation structure with open arms, and you would be hilariously, spectacularly wrong. The initial reaction involved a lot of spreadsheets, forecasting doom, and phrases like compensation cost explosion. This is where stakeholder involvement became critical. Overcoming that internal resistance required modeling, not just the cost of the new system, but the hidden costs of the old one. Employee turnover, lost deals due to disengagement, and the opportunity cost of having talented people operating at 70% capacity. It wasn't about feelings. It was about building a business case for better financial motivation. When it was time to launch, they followed the principles that W. Chan Kim and Renee Malbon call fair process, but applied specifically to compensation challenges. Engagement. They shared the anonymized findings for the diagnostic. They said, here's what you told us was broken about how we reward performance. We listened. Explanation. In a company-wide town hall, the head of sales didn't just present the new plan, he explained why it was designed this way, explicitly referencing the goals of autonomy, mastery, and purpose, and how each element was designed to make financial success more achievable and more meaningful. Expectation clarity. The new system was documented with absolute clarity. No fine print. Every manager was trained to explain it, and every rep knew exactly how the new system worked and what the path to higher earnings looked like. It was a profound shift. They stopped treating compensation as a mere accounting function and started treating it as what it truly is, the most powerful communication tool they have for showing their people what behavior will be financially rewarded and how individual success connects to company success. So, what happens when you stop trying to motivate your team with boring financial incentives and start designing a compensation system that actually feeds their intrinsic hunger for autonomy, mastery, and purpose while delivering serious financial rewards? The results at Innovate Corp weren't just a minor uptick. It was a complete system reboot that proved financial motivation and intrinsic motivation aren't enemies. they're powerful allies. Let's start with the hard numbers, because they tell a powerful story. First, that stagnant high-margin product line, within 12 months, sales were up 28%. That wasn't from a new market campaign or price cuts. It was from a sales team that was suddenly energized to tackle complex strategic deals again because the compensation system rewarded the expertise and effort required for those deals. Second, voluntary attrition among their top 2 quartiles of performers. The people you absolutely cannot afford to lose dropped by over 60%. They stopped quietly looking for the exit because, for the first time in a long time, they had compelling financial reasons to stay and grow their careers internally. And third, the average deal size for new business increased by 18%. Why? Because reps were no longer just selling a product to hit a monthly number. They were acting as long-term partners, driving more value because they were financially rewarded for customer success, not just transaction volume. But here's the most telling metric. Total compensation costs as a percentage of revenue actually decreased by 3%, even as individual earnings for top performers increased significantly. The system became more efficient at rewarding the right behaviors. But the numbers, as impressive as they are, don't even tell the most important part of the story. The truly profound impact was qualitative. It was the change in language, the very sound of the sales floor. For the first time, I feel like I'm building a business, not just cashing a check. The conversations in team meetings shifted from, "What's the minimum I need to do to get my bonus?" and was replaced by, "I have an idea on how we can crack this new market, and I can see exactly how it'll pay off for all of us." The weekly pipeline reviews went from being interrogations about forecast accuracy to being strategic portfolio discussions about maximizing long-term value. Managers reported spending less time policing compensation disputes and more time having high-level coaching conversations about skill development and career growth, conversations that now had clear financial implications. They had fundamentally solved the quiet quitting problem by making the financial rewards too compelling and too aligned with the meaningful work to quit. They transformed the job from a series of boring transactional tasks into an epic wealth-building opportunity that people were desperate to be a part of. And this was the ultimate business impact. Innovate Corp didn't just boost sales. They reignited their innovation engine. Their sales team, once a group of disengaged order takers, became their frontline intelligence network, bringing back crucial insights from the market that began to shape future product development. They didn't just save their competitive edge, they began to sharpen it into a formidable weapon. The lesson? When you design financial incentives that work with human psychology instead of against it, you don't just get better performance, you get people who are genuinely excited about their earnings potential and their impact. So, you've seen how Innovate Corp pulled it off. Now, the big question pops up. How do you bring this compensation revolution to your organization without, accidentally starting an actual revolution in the finance department? It's a great question. Because this isn't a one-size-fits-all software patch that you can just simply download and install. It's a full system upgrade of how you think about financial motivation, and the implementation needs to be as well designed as the compensation plan itself. So, let's talk about the keys to success. What is absolutely non-negotiable when redesigning financial incentives? First, executive sponsorship is everything. If your senior leadership isn't just approving this, but actively championing it, it's dead on arrival. This can't be an HR initiative or even just a sales initiative. It has to be a core business strategy with clear financial modeling and ROI projections. Second, your frontline managers are the fulcrum. You can design the most brilliant compensation plan in the world, but your sales managers are the ones who have to translate it into reality every single day. And third, patience with the process, urgency with the problems. You're changing culture, not just a spreadsheet. This is less like flipping a switch and more like turning a massive flywheel. It takes a huge initial push. and then consistent effort to get it up to speed. But don't let patience become an excuse for inaction. The cost of a demotivating compensation system compounds daily. Now, how might this look in a different context? If you're a 50-person startup, you don't need a massive formal diagnostic. Your compensation diagnostic can be a series of honest, open conversations over coffee. Your mastery reward might be equity participation or direct mentorship from the CEO. You can be nimble and experiment with the different approaches quickly. But if you're in a 5,000-person global enterprise, don't try to boil the ocean. Start with a pilot program in one division or region. Use that as your beta test. The success of that pilot becomes the undeniable data-backed proof you need to get buy-in from a broader rollout. Think of it as your minimum viable product for compensation redesign. For mid-sized companies, say 200 to 2,000 employees, you have the sweet spot. You're big enough to need a systematic approach, but small enough to move with purpose. Focus on one sales team or product line as a pilot, but invest in the full diagnostic and design process. But be warned, it's easy to stumble here. There are a few classic pitfalls that can turn your compensation revolution into a compensation disaster. The biggest is the flavor of the month trap. Don't announce this with a huge kickoff only to have everyone forget about it in 3 months when the next initiative comes along. That doesn't just fail, it actively creates cynicism that poisons future attempts at meaningful change. Another is ignoring the financial reality. This is not about writing a blank check for the sake of autonomy and purpose. Every element must be rigorously modeled. A compensation plan that is wonderfully motivating but bankrupts the company is, to put it technically, a spectacularly bad plan. The goal is to make financial incentives more effective, not more expensive. The one-size-fits-all trap is equally dangerous. Don't create a new uniform compensation plan that treats your top performers and your struggling newbies exactly the same. Remember the menu concept. The flexibility to choose how you pursue financial success is in itself a powerful motivator. And finally, set it and forget it mistake. Compensation systems need regular tuning just like any high-performance engine. Market conditions change, business priorities shift, and what motivated people last year might not work this year. Build in regular review cycles and feedback mechanisms. So what does this take in terms of resources? This isn't a weekend project you can knock out between quarterly business reviews. You should budget 3 to 6 months for the diagnostic, design, and modeling phases for a mid-sized organization, and you need a dedicated cross-functional team, sales operations, HR, finance, and crucially, some of your best sales managers who are all brought into the mission. This is a strategic investment with a strategic timeline that delivers truly strategic results. But the ROI, as Innovate Corp discovered, can be transformational. So let's bring it all home. Today, we busted the myth of quiet quitting, exposing it not as a problem with our people, but as a massive design flaw in our financial motivation systems. We saw how a focus on core human drivers of autonomy, mastery, and purpose can transform a disengaged team into a high-performance engine, not by abandoning financial incentives, but by making them work in harmony with what actually drives human beings. The key insight? Everyone needs both meaningful work and compelling financial rewards. Today we focused on the financial component, and in a future video, we'll dive deep into the meaning and purpose side of the equation. Both matter tremendously, and the most powerful organizations design for both simultaneously. My primary challenge to you is this. Go back to your office and look at your compensation plan. Don't look at it like an accountant looking at costs. Look at it like a user experience designer examining the interface. Is this a system that inspires creativity, rewards expertise, and makes people genuinely excited about their earnings potential? Or is it a clunky, confusing, and deeply boring system that's causing your best people to quietly disengage from their highest value activities? This could fundamentally reshape your outcomes because when you get financial motivation right, you don't just improve performance, you unlock the discretionary effort that separates good teams from legendary ones. If you enjoyed today's deep dive into compensation design and are ready to keep transforming your sales organization with evidence-based strategies, I encourage you to subscribe for more insights. Make sure you click the bell so you don't miss our next video when we dive even deeper into building high-performance sales organizations. If you know a leader or colleague who is wrestling with this exact problem, who has talented people who seem disengaged despite competitive compensation, share this video with them. It might be the most valuable conversation starter you have had all quarter. And I'd love to continue the conversation with you, so please connect with me on LinkedIn. I read every message and use your insights to shape future content. Finally, what are your biggest challenges with motivation and financial incentives? What's the most boring or counterproductive part of your current compensation plan? Tell me and let me know in the comments below. I read all of them and use your feedback to shape future episodes. To make this real, here are 3 things you can do first thing on Monday morning to start applying these ideas in diagnosing your own compensation system. Become a compensation detective for 1 day. Make a private list of every time you hear someone on your team talk about money, incentives, or rewards, both positive and negative comments. Don't try to solve anything yet. Just notice the language people use when they talk about their financial motivation. You'll be amazed at what you discover. Ask one high performer and one struggling performer this exact question. If you could redesign your compensation plan to make you more excited about your earnings potential, what would you change? Their answers will give you powerful insights into what financial autonomy means to different members of your team. Pick one small financial decision that affects your team's, maybe a spiff, a contest structure, or even how you communicate about commissions. Before you make the decision yourself, go to your team and say, here's what we're trying to achieve financially. What approach do you think would be the most motivating? See what happens when you give away a small piece of autonomy over financial incentives. Try these out, and then come back and post your results or your biggest learning in the comments below. I'll be looking out for them, and I'll create a follow-up video addressing the most insightful experiences or common questions about compensation design. Thanks so much for watching. Keep motivating, stay curious, keep growing, and keep making your financial incentives as compelling as your mission. I'll see you in the next one. With boring financial incentives and start designing a I can't say compensation. Yes.